Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Watt, and again we're joined by a special guest while we take a deep dive into the tools of access consciousness while we explore this amazing planet that we live on. Welcome everyone to a podcast with an awesome friend of mine talking about an awesome topic, and I'm just diving in. We just spoke 30 seconds ago about what this podcast is going to be about. So welcome to Wynne-Jones, and this podcast is all about kindness.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
So I'm just going to ask the question: what does kindness mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's so funny because this topic is like one that it actually brings up a lot for me. I don't think I've been very good at receiving kindness in my life, but for me, I guess kindness is that place where you treat yourself with regard and you have the ability to be that with others as well. And true kindness, I think, is that place as well of where there's no obligation attached, and it's actually comes from this place of, being generous with you and being generous with others.
Cool.
What about for you, Sarah?
Yeah, okay, cool. All of that for sure. And also, I want to say also the willingness to say no, and also the willingness to sometimes go to places where most people would consider it being unkind. And it's really something that I've looked at a lot, because I think when I think about kindness, it's like I had this place where it meant always being nice and always being agreeable, I want to say. And now I guess I'm starting to realize that sometimes it's also super kind to say no, and to have that space with yourself as well. I loved what you said then about receiving kindness, and my follow-up question to you was going to be about if receiving kindness from others has been, whatever, quote unquote, difficult, is that because it's also a place where it's difficult to receive kindness for ourselves? And I think even with ourselves, sometimes it's that place of being able to kind of look at what's actually going to create the future we desire to have, and sometimes realizing that's saying no to ourselves about some things as well, and being able to receive that part of it too. So I don't know if that, and the question, I guess, with what you said was the receiving it from others. How is that linked, or how does that tie into receiving it from you?
Yeah, well, I think I think it's got a lot to do with how you treat yourself as to whether you can receive that kindness from others and whether you have that place with you, because it's often the way that we treat ourselves is also how we allow ourselves to be, received by others and received from others. But I mean, it's funny because I've spoken to quite a few people recently who have just sort of had something new in their life in this area where they've met someone that actually, treats them with kindness where they didn't have that before. And they're like, What's going on? There must be something wrong, It's not being used to actually receiving that energy in their life and kind of freaking out about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for some people it can actually also be quite a confronting energy, and a lot of people think they have to have done something to deserve it. But I also really like that piece that you were talking about, that kindness is sometimes calling someone on their bullshit and being willing to get uncomfortable and have those conversations that not everyone is willing to have with you and stuff as well. So
yeah. Um, and I think like what you were saying then too, with how you were talking about the people that have people in their lives now that are being kind to them, and they're like, whoa. It's like I remember growing up as a child. Very quickly, I adapted myself to almost like um, find like almost lead people more into being kind, like almost. Yeah, but I guess in a way, really, it's like what you were saying. You have people in your life that are close to you, and you sometimes constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like you're waiting for something to kind of go wrong, and rather than like having that kindness with you and with them, and actually saying, no, this doesn't work. I'm actually, this isn't kind, and which in itself is a kindness. It's a kindness to you, and it's a kindness to them, because that's something that's going to create change. I just remember as a kid quickly going to this place of like almost being overly kind to people so I would avoid that. Like I very quickly figured out how to adapt myself into this thing that people required so that there was like more kindness around. So it's funny as well, like how we take these energies and we take these things and almost like bastardize them in a way, like turn them into something that they're not, in order to have a space which doesn't actually really exist, like this place of like. And I mean, I don't know if you could talk more about the people you're referring to that have met people this is happening, that they have this level of kindness, but where you try to create it somewhere in a relationship where it's not working, thinking that that's actually changing something, but in actual fact, it's never actually a kindness in itself, if that makes sense.
yeah, and I mean, I think that's also one of these areas where it's like if we have this kindness with us, we just kind of also assume that, or it's something that we even just desire in our lives. We like assume that that's what everyone else wants, and that's what everyone else wants to create. And so like functioning from that place of, oh, they must be choosing this like for some reason because something happened in their life, or rather than just looking at what they're choosing and what that's creating. And yeah, I mean, I remember having like some friends at school that I like would just do and be really like unkind, and I didn't get it, and I always thought that there must be some reason for it, but I think it was just really a choice thing of how they're showing up and what they're choosing. And I think we probably tend to gravitate towards the people that have that space of whatever that is that kindness is for us.
That's cool. And I loved how you said that, because I was like trying to put it into words, and then you were just like nailed it. Yeah, it's like that thing where we have it in us, so we believe that everyone else has it in them, which they probably do. But like you said, being kind is a choice, being unkind is a choice. People choose to be assholes. They choose to be unkind because they choose to be assholes, and they choose to be unkind. It's not because they were abused or because of this or because I was mean. It's just a choice. And I think that's so nailed it, what you were saying there, where like I was like, okay, if I could just show these people what kindness is, then surely they'll choose it. Like if I can just show them, like, here's Sarah, like, especially when I was younger, where I was just like, whoa, everything's so fucking awesome and magic. And like, here I am. And I just happened to be born into a family that had a lot of very unhappy, assholey people in it too. So yeah, I think thank you. Because that just completely was the energy that I was looking at in the words. So now that like we have that space and that awareness of having kindness as a choice, like can you talk about like some of the things that you choose for you that give you that space of kindness in your world, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like one of the things that you said to start with that I hadn't really actually looked at that as a kindness, but that when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that like that willingness to like to say no to things that don't work for you. Like, I mean, for me, I used to do a lot of things just because I thought that's what I had to do or I was supposed to do to be normal or to fit in or whatever. But like actually, for me, sometimes it just never really worked. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it, and I was like, what? Like I really got to the point of why am I actually doing? Like why am I doing this? Doesn't make me happy. Doesn't seem to be making anyone else happy. So it's like,
Yep.
what would actually work? And I think choosing sometimes those things that you think you think you shouldn't, or you get that energy in your world of like when you start to choose for you sort of in a way that you haven't before, sometimes this like wrongness energy starts to creep in and you're like, there must be something wrong because I'm finally actually choosing something for myself, but it feels like you're an asshole or whatever for doing it. So but I would say like the more that you do start to choose those things, the easier it gets to actually choose it again and know what's true for you in those situations. And
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you about the horses as well, because I know you've just bought a horse in Australia, and I know you've got one in Costa Rica, and it's like, have the horses taught you or shown you anything about kindness?
So funny. I was just sitting here thinking, next thing I'm going to talk about is my horse.
Still psychic.
Still psychic. So basically, my horses, wherever I'm willing to learn, my horses will teach me absolutely everything in lightning speed and with precision and accuracy. And if I don't receive it, they will also, sometimes hurt me. So I was just with Ollie, my horse here in Australia, and it's raining and he's settling into this new property and blah, blah, blah. And so I got him out and I could tell straight away he was jacked up. Like his energy was really spooky and not really focusing. And I was like, this fucking actually isn't working for me. Like, this is not feeling like fun. You're being a dickhead and it's raining. And what I really desire is to have a fun ride. So, and I just asked him, I was like, hey, dude, do you actually want to be ridden right now? Or would you rather me take your saddle off and stick you back in the paddock and you can stay there in the rain for the rest of the day? And I just like asked him and then stood there and sat with the energy. And and then he was like, no, let's ride. So I got on and we like had this ride where it was like working on that, like being with him energetically. And even though he still continued for probably the first half of the ride to be like, oh my God, what's that? Oh my God, it's a dragon. And I'm like, whatever, dude, like I'm just going to be here with you and we're going to do it. And then eventually we got to this place of there being more connection energetically. So, and I think like when I looked at, because at the time I wasn't really looking at the kindness energy, it was really more this place of like, what do I desire here? And is this working for me? But when I look at it now with this energy, that to me is actually kindness, because it would have been unkind to me to be like, oh, this is all fine and everything's okay. And it would have been unkind to him because he would have been like, okay, cool. So now I can just fucking be an asshole whenever I want and you're just going to put up with it. And at one point he was like moving and walking over me and I like jammed my hand into his side and was like, dude, you need to fucking pay attention to where I am in this scenario as well. And like there was such this energy of like, it wasn't mean or abusive, but there was this energy of like, fucking don't stand on me and getting I mean, he's 500 kilograms. He's like 6-7 times the size of me. So
he's a big boy.
to try and he is, and to try and like muscle and wrestle with a horse, it's never going to work. Strength-wise, they're going to win hands down. Energy-wise, he could run all day. I'm never going to outrun him. I'm never going to out-muscle him. So it was really like with horses, I love so much any tool with access consciousness and anything that's up in my world, they will show me really like right there. So Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I met my horse in Costa Rica, like, I mean, talk about a fucking kind animal that's just like got this zone, like this like awareness that was so big. And yeah, he's shown me like all of this sort of stuff as well. And I mean, you know, even if you I would recommend anyone to get around a horse if there's anything in your life that you want to like have more clarity with. They are like the best facilitators in the world. Um, I remember hearing Gary Douglas say, everything I've learned in life, I've learned from a horse. And I was like, what? And I mean, I've been a horse person my whole life and I never looked at it that way. And now it's like, what if everything, every energy that came up, everything that we saw as like a problem or an issue or anything was just an opportunity to have more awareness about stuff? And that for me is really a kindness as well, because rather than ever having to try and figure anything out, if you're willing to just ask a question and look at things and be kind to yourself, then anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, and that's such a great point, because it's like, if you know, if you look at it like as kindness is, you know, creating more awareness, it's like, and you spoke a little bit about the thing where it's like almost some of the things seem like on the border of like unkindness. But it's like, from that place, sometimes, you know, awareness is uncomfortable and it doesn't necessarily feel like kind at the time. But, you know, ultimately it's like it creates a place where you do have more ease in your life, and not, you know more, rather than functioning from the unawareness that leads to problems and difficulties in your life. So
Yeah.
I also really like what you were saying about that piece of like, just, I guess it's like standing up for yourself. And, you know, I think we're so often taught that the kind thing to do is to cut off some part of you for another. But like
Sure.
what you were saying of just, you know what, no, this doesn't work for me. And I'd like something different. And, you know,
Yep.
making that
Yep.
demand. And yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot from this. Thank you.
Cool. Me too.
Yeah.
And so let's look at quickly like creating a future. Like, what do you get with like, if you look at like the future that you desire to create as well, like where can kindness be like an element of creation with and for like the future that you desire to have?
That's a really good question. I mean, you know, like some of the other sort of elements, like, you know, gratitude, for example, is one of those ones where whenever I'm like in a funk or something, if I can find something to be grateful for, it really helps.
Yeah.
And so I guess in the same way, like, that that kindness, like choosing that kindness for you, I get really opens the door also for the other people in your life to receive more of it, if what, you know, if that's what they're
Yeah.
also looking to create. And I think therefore it can be something that like exponentializes and sort of grows in that way, that other people can also have it available for them.
Yeah.
What about for you? What is it for you with the future and kindness?
Well, I think like, you know, sometimes, well, it's awesome to kind of almost always have that question when you're choosing something. And, you know, like listening to Gary Douglas and Dane here and Simone and Brendon talk in classes where they talk about like creating your future and making those choices and asking that question, if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years, 50 years, 500 years, 5,000 years? To really get that energy of what this one choice, no matter how small it is, might contribute to that. And again, I think because for me, you know, like sometimes when I'm choosing things, I will almost like pre-choose and like not ask that question. Like, and even things with my body
What?
too, like, yeah, right. Or,
Never do that.
especially you like taking people to bed maybe might be another one where it's like, there's great questions to ask before you do that. But sometimes I'm like, oh, but he's so handsome, I'm going to take him to bed. And then next day I'm like, what the fuck just happened? So I think like also looking at that energy of saying no is the willingness to say no to you, like to look at like, even though, and using sex as an example, because it's an easy one to fathom. And body stuff too with me, especially like I will push my body a lot with the gym, especially like I'm like, okay, I want to, I don't go to my body and say, hey, how do you want to move today? Or if we go to the gym, what will this create? And I can feel my body starting to like be like, dude, you just need to back it off a bit. And I went to the gym again, and now I'm like, my back's all fucked and my legs are all fucked. And for me, that future creation and the kindness energy, it's almost like this kindness to me kind of encompasses everything. And it's really the willingness to have no and say no to yourself. So the same thing with the example of like taking someone to bed with you and not asking the questions first, that is total unkindness. Like that is being truly unkind to you, and it's being unkind to them as well, because I know, well, I get that like when you're being kind, even if the kindness is a no, it always creates greater for everyone. Like the people that are directly involved and the people that aren't directly involved in the choices you're making. If you're willing to be present with those choices and really choose based on what matches that future energy, you'll know when it's a no, and you'll know when it's a yes, or you'll know when it's like a yes, but like, maybe not right now, yes, maybe yes in the future, or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention too quickly about, because I was thinking about this as well. So Access Consciousness also has like, so you're listening to this podcast, Sul and I are both Access Consciousness certified facilitators, and you can find out everything you need to know at accessconsciousness.com, as well as like our profile pages, and we'll put notes in the show notes with this podcast. But the other thing I wanted to talk about quickly, maybe just to sort of, wrap this up in a nice little bow, is the bars, which is kind of the foundation hands-on body process in Access. It's these points on your head that you lightly touch. And there's always been these 3 points that have been, even though you're not meant to have favorites, have been one of my favorites whenever I get my bars run. And that is kindness, gratitude, peace, and calm. And it's like these 3 little points that are like just up like above your ear, and you put your fingers in like this little triangular position, and it's usually towards the end of a bars session. And for some reason, a lot of people forget them or miss them or something like that. But for me, they're 3 bars points as well that always create so much peace and space in my world. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well and talk quickly about the fact that a lot of this stuff we've talked about can seem like it's a little bit, where do I start or where do I go to? Like, what even if you just started with, as often as you can, having your bars run?
Totally. And like I would say the bars is, largely the place where you can begin to receive kindness and, allow your body to receive that as well. And and if you are listening to this and you're like, I don't know where to start, just ask like, okay, what choice could I make today to start to choose, kindness right away, and see what shows up, and start looking at that with your choices. Like Sarah was saying with the, asking what your life will be like. If it has a sort of sense of expansion and possibilities, maybe it would work out well. And if it feels like it's going to contract and not be so much fun, maybe it wouldn't be your best choice. But yeah, just start and it will come.
Yeah, I love it. And just every day, you just keep asking the questions. And, it's the same with me. I don't know about you, but I've been choosing Access and using these tools for a lot of years, and every day still I am on this amazing journey where the more I'm willing to ask, the more that shows up and the more I can receive, and then I can choose more and ask more. And I think overall that's kindness too, being willing to ask for and receive and choose a greater life, and something that's very different than a lot of other people might be choosing around you as well. So
yeah, the
wonderful.
founder of Access, Gary Douglas, says that we're morons because we just want to choose more and more and more all the time.
Okay, I like it. I'm a moron for sure. And I love that about Access. There is such a level of laughter and I'm just so grateful. So yeah, whatever you guys do, please, check out accessconsciousness.com, find a bars practitioner, get your bars run. There's so much free stuff online. You can reach out to myself or Saul at any time as well. And yeah, what if the purpose of life is to have fun? And that was all part of being kind as well. So thank you so much. This was a very kind podcast.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me. A pleasure.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. If you'd like to find more of my podcast or more information, you can head to my website, sarahwatt.com.au/road trip or sarahwatt.podbean.com. See you on the next episode.